Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome back. In lecture 5, we will cover the second part of municipal management and finance. The different concepts that we will cover in this lecture are on municipal finance and service provision, municipal taxes, charges and fees, grant in aid and subsidies, foreign direct investment, loans from financial institutions, municipal bonds and debentures, public-private partnership. Now, in our last lecture, we have seen that a municipal body has to be organized. It has to have a proper structure to actually provide services to different parts of the urban areas. And this organizational structure is very important in effective provision of services. Similar to that, if along with the organizational structure or the institutional capacity, we require finances or money to actually provide or to provide this kind of services or to create infrastructure for other kinds or future service provision. So, in most cases we have seen that ULBs in India, they still lack the financial autonomy and they need to improve upon that. So, that means that they cannot generate that much amount of income, and accordingly because they cannot generate that much of income or they are tied up because they are not given the power to raise so much amount of revenue. So, in that case their capacity to deliver infrastructure and services also suffer. And in India we have seen that municipal revenues or expenditure, you can say, is approximately 1% of the GDP. Whereas in many countries such as Brazil, it is around 7.4%, South Africa 6%. What it means is the municipalities doesn't have the capacity to generate money, and because if they don't have the capacity to generate money, they also doesn't have the capacity to spend money. And because they cannot neither generate or spend money, obviously the overall service quality of the municipalities are very, very poor. So, revenue sources are also limited because the state government in most cases determine what are the revenues that the ULBs would be able to collect. So, that is also limited because the state doesn't give that much amount of power. They need to improve. Then the other problem is the capacity for urban planning and management. Overall capacity is also lacking, and the central and the state government should provide a sort of environment which facilitates this kind of autonomous decision making or revenue generation and so on, which environment is still lacking. That needs to be worked upon. So, as per this, the 74th Amendment, ULBs has been considered as the third tier of governance. So, we have the state government, we have the central government, and along with that we have the ULBs, which is the third tier of government. So, what it means is it can take a lot of decisions regarding the well-being of the people it administrates, and to do that it requires finance, it requires money, and for that it requires the power to also collect money for provision of services in that area or collect money via taxes. So, Article 243X allows municipal bodies to collect and this taxes, duties, tolls and fees, and allow state governments to assign revenues from specific taxes to the urban local governments. So, this actually defines that which tax the municipal body would be allowed to collect. Similarly, Article 243Y, this says that or allows state finance commissions, central finance commissions, these are basically bodies which determine how much money would be allocated for what purpose, right? So, this is the job of the finance commission. So, the task of reviewing and recommending devolution of tax revenues and grant in aid to urban local bodies. So, that means the state finance commission determines how much amount of grant has to be given for operation or for provision of service or for day-to-day operation of municipal bodies, right? So that grant in aid or what kind of tax revenues that the state collect, how much portion of that will go to the ULB, that is determined by the State Finance Commission, and that power is given via Article 243Y. So in most cases, we see that ULB revenue sources are entirely decided by the state government. So state government says that these are the things that you can collect your taxes or revenues from. Now, after the goods and service tax, which was implemented in 2017, what happened was the GST is only a state and central government, because of GST, only state and central government can raise tax. So there is state level GST and the central level GST. So ULBs earlier, which was supposed to raise certain kinds of taxes, they have been taken away. The power to raise, put those or charge taxes or charge revenue, that has been taken away once the GST came in. So the money that is being generated is now going directly to the state or the center. So the same services and all for which earlier the ULB used to charge money, some of those services are going to the state or the center instead of the ULB. So that means the state and center should transfer that money, or there has to be a mechanism to transfer that money back to the ULB. Now, ULBs can generate certain tax still. That means not everything has been taken away from the ULB. Like property tax and certain other taxes, the ULBs can still earn money from those kind of taxes at the municipal level. So this taxes, this property taxes and all, this doesn't goes to the state or the center. So this remains with the municipality. So talking about municipal taxes, what kind of taxes the municipality can charge, that comes from that is determined via the state laws, and the municipality, based on whatever is allowed via the state laws, the municipality can levy some of those charges there, and they can also decide that some of the charges they may not wish to levy. So based on their capacity and all, they may determine that these are the charges that I will take, these are the other charges that I will not charge. For example, municipality may decide that I will not charge any water for taxes for water supply, right? So that depends on the municipality. ULBs can also levy some surcharges. So some taxes are generated by the state, so or we have to pay some taxes to the state. Now, the municipality can put some surcharge on that tax as well. That means some additional component has to be charged over that tax, which will come as a revenue for the municipality. So, in addition to taxes, there are also charges and fees which are levied by the municipality or the ULB. So, what are these? These include development charges. Like for example, new infrastructure, new service has been provided. So we can charge some extra money because of that. So that's called a development charge, because of that the overall area improves. Then there are betterment charges, that exactly people who are benefited of some projects and all, they can be charged some money. Then service charges such as for water supply, drainage, sewerage, we can charge some money. For solid waste management, parking, stacking of materials in urban areas, we can also ask for some money to be paid to the municipal body or the urban local body. So in addition, there are some other fees, some other levies, some impact fees, some non-tax sources, some valorization charges like solid waste management, those kind of charges, treatment charges. So all these charges are also levied by the municipality. So this table is provided by URDPFI. So you can see that some of the taxes, I have of course not given all the taxes and all. So this is also pre-GST. So that means some of these taxes are not able to be like octroi and all has been abolished. So the municipal body cannot charge octroi and all, but certain taxes still remain. Like property tax, the municipality can collect tax on land, tax on building, and also it can collect taxes on empty lands or empty lands which have not been developed and so on. So taxes could be on vehicles, could be on it could be on electricity sales, it could be on different kinds of garbage treatment, or it could be on some markets and all could be taxed, some trade activities could be taxed, stamp duty on transfer on properties, stamp duty on transfer of immovable properties, all these things could be, some form of taxes could be charged for that. And this taxes goes to the municipal body. Then there are surcharges, like for example, as I told that there are certain taxes, but we ask for some extra surcharge on those taxes. These are transfer of land and buildings, there could be a surcharge. Electricity consumption, based on the electricity that you consume, there could be a surcharge tax on that, that could be charged by the municipality. For entertainment, there could be a surcharge tax, that means you buy a ticket for this movie and you have to pay an extra tax which goes into the ULB. So these are the surcharges. Then charges, different kind of charges include development charges, water supply charges, drainage charges, solid waste management charges, and so on. Fees, charges and fees are more or less synonymous, but some variations could be there, like advertisement fee, trade license fee. So these are like you will get a service from the municipality, like you will get a trade license, for that you have to pay a fee. Then warrant fee, birth and death registration certificate, for that you have to pay a fee. So these are the different kinds of fees that you have to pay. And finally, there are tolls. That means like when we travel on a particular road, the municipality can charge some money for the maintenance of that road, or if the road is being newly constructed, the municipality also can charge money for using that particular road. So this is a toll, could be charged from roads, some bridges, some ferries, trucks, and so on. So these are the different kinds of municipal taxes, charges and fees that are usually seen in different urban areas. Now, the taxes and fees are, as we are discussing, are very limited. That means the municipality generates some revenue out of that, but that is very, very limited. And particularly for large scale infrastructure projects, we require revenue from different sources, or we require finance from different sources. So sometimes this is provided in terms of grants in aid and subsidies which are provided by the central government or the state government, right? So as per the framework of the Central Finance Commission and the State Finance Commission, so these are the bodies which does the budgeting and determines how much money goes where. So they can transfer some of the money to the ULBs. They do transfer some of the money to the ULBs, so that some capital infrastructure projects or for day-to-day activities could be also taken up, because the revenue generated by the municipality is not adequate. Then Planning Commission additionally recommends some development grants to states, and because this development grant comes to state, some part of it has to go to the ULBs as well. So that means for certain programs, certain kinds of special activities or some kind of special initiatives by the government, some extra fund also comes, which comes to the state and eventually to the ULBs. So these grants could be divided into different parts. One is a capital grant, which is for capital expenditure, and usually using this capital grant we can develop infrastructure, or we can buy certain kinds of infrastructure or certain kinds of equipment which can be paid over for a extensive period. That means it could be a multi-year grant. That means in each year we get certain components of it. So usually it can be for an extensive period. Then there are revenue grants, that is recurring expenditure, like annual expenditure. To meet that, revenue grants are provided, which could be every year, some expenses on salary, some expenses on certain maintenance activities that has to be incurred. So that can be made from the revenue grant. So in addition to revenue grant, there are some revenue grants are also known as subsidies, which are also which are primarily used for provision of municipal services. Like for example, there is a transport service provided by the municipality. Now the money that is generated by the transport service from selling of tickets and all, maybe only 50% of the actual cost of provision of the service. So the rest is provided as a grant from the central or the state government, which is the subsidy. So this is called a subsidy in that particular case. So this is one kind of revenue grant, you can say. Then there are another way to categorize this is to say general basic grant. This kind of grants are provided for supply of basic services, water supply, street lights, roads, parks, sanitation, and so on. And then there are general performance grants. That means if the municipality does a good job of administrating that particular area, providing good quality service, definitely if that could be actually proved and recorded, and based on the performance of the municipality, based on the audited accounts, the municipality is also given some additional grants, which is performance based grants. So this can help in further development of infrastructure, and also there is some sort of accountability in the process. That means you are doing some work, and because of that you are doing good work, you are rewarded for that. So these are performance grants. And then there are special area basic grants, that for some special areas or areas which are underdeveloped or very areas which are sensitive in other ways, maybe for defense and other things, there may be some special area grants also that could be given. So one of the major ways to get for larger projects and all, or for a big chunk of expenses by the municipality, is supplied by the grant in aid and subsidies. Now, but if I go for a very large infrastructure project, for example, I want to construct the high-speed rail corridor in India, right? So it's not for an urban area, but for connecting multiple urban areas. But there could be similar projects in urban area in terms of a sewerage network development for an urban area. So for that we require a huge amount of money. So there may be different avenues to get this money. So the grant in aid may not be adequate to, or like the capital grant may not be adequate to meet the expenditure required to do those kind of infrastructure projects. Now my idea is, once I do the infrastructure, I will be able to generate money, and using that I can pay the loan that I have to take to develop that particular infrastructure. So if I don't take the loan, or if I don't get money to develop that infrastructure, I will not be able to generate money. But if I do that, then I'll be able to generate money and I'll be able to pay my loan, right? So there are different ways to do that. So one way is to go for foreign direct investment, FDI. So that means the government of India has now allowed 100% FDI in certain kinds of development projects, such as township development, housing development, certain infrastructure projects which require a huge quantum of money. So foreign companies, foreign entities can come and invest, and they can invest 100%, and they have a stake in that particular project, and the money that that will be generated out of that project, that could be used to actually, or the profit that will be generated out of that project, that will actually help in meeting the investment goals of that particular entity, right? So that means like for example, JICA, this is Japanese International Cooperation Agency for International Development. They have invested in the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, and this is a full FDI project. So that means the entire money has come from foreign investors, and this has been put into the project, and the benefits eventually that would be generated out of that project, that will be able to pay up for this particular investment, right? So in addition to FDI, which is the investment path, the other is the loan path. Like for example, the ULB can take a loan from a particular agency, and they have to pay the loan over a period of time. In case of investment, it's a little different. That means the profit that would be generated would be able to pay back for that particular investment, but it's not a payment of a loan, right? It's a profit that is being generated out of that investment. Now in case of ULBs, the ULB can take long-term infrastructure financing, like infrastructure which is developed for a long period, like 10 years, 15 years, some infrastructure developed. So in that case, there are certain companies like banks, some trust companies, some insurance companies. These are the ones which can provide long-term infrastructure financing. So these are like, in case of India, we see IDFC, NHB, HUDCO, ILFS, ICICI, LIC of India. These are the different agencies which actually provide long-term infrastructure finance for ULBs. Now, to get a loan, the ULB has to have a credit rating. That means the credit rating determines the capacity of that municipality to pay back that loan. It depends on the kind of assets the municipality owns, it depends on what kind of revenue it generates, and so on. So usually the rate of interest, that is, the rate of interest depends on the risk of the project, right? So this risk of the project is again depends on the financial health of the municipality. If the municipality has got a very good financial health, then the risk is less, so obviously the rate of interest is also low. So that's why credit rating is very, very important. That has to be determined for this municipality, and for that there are specific agencies which provide this kind of services. Then there are banking institutions which, in addition to providing long-term infrastructure financing, some banks do that, but not all banks do that, but other banks can also provide short to medium-term loans to ULBs. That means working capital loans, bridge loans, loans against some property, so short-term loans which has to be repaid within a year or maybe a few years, that can be also provided by some banking institutions. So certain kind of projects could be also taken up via this kind of loans. Then in addition to loans from banks, institutions from my own country, I can also take loans from institutions from foreign countries. So for that there are bilateral institutions and multilateral institutions. So usually we know them as bilateral and multilateral development agencies. So bilateral agency means there is a two-way relationship. That means a foreign non-profit bilateral organizations provide loan to developing countries. That means it's an organization which provides loan to a single country. So it's a one-to-one relationship. So for examples of that is USAID, DFID. USAID is from the US, DFID is from UK, JBIC and JICA is from Japan, Australia Aid is from Australia, and so on. So these are the agencies which help in developing some developing countries and all, and they provide one-to-one loan to these particular countries. And in addition to that, there are multilateral organizations, for example, World Bank, United Nations, Asian Development Bank, OECD. So all this also, like this is a group, these agencies are formed by a group of countries which can pull money into some certain funds and all. And these agencies using these funds actually can give some loans or granting aids to other countries which actually require them, right? So this is also a loan, it's a long-term loan, and usually the purpose of this kind of agency or this kind of loan is to support at projects which are not economically attractive. So banks, financial institutions, FDIs are mostly for economically attractive projects where there is a chance of return, right? Then there are other projects where the chance of return is very less. So the municipality, based on its finances, will take 30 years to repay the loan, right? Because this particular project may not give money, but overall the municipality's financial health, the overall the quality of life in the municipality will improve. That will increase other revenues and all, and from there the municipality will pay back the money, right? So in that way, that means unattractive projects also needs to be financed. So this is where this kind of agencies can actually help. So it's in this application process is a long, the fund disbursement process is long and it's complicated. It requires detailed planning reports, compliance of safe environment, social safety policies. All this, this plans has to be created very, very thoroughly, and it really has to be a very, a plan which looks into all aspects, the environment, the social safety, and so on. And these loans have to be also guaranteed by a government of India or sometimes even by the state government, right? So that is how this kind of loans are, money is also made available for some unattractive projects, but of course, you have to make sure that you have to create a proper project report for this, and then you will get money for this particular services or this kind of infrastructure. Then finally comes the municipal bonds and debentures. So these are ways how the municipality can raise money on their own. So these bonds are like guarantees which the municipality sells, saying that after a certain period, after a fixed tenure, a fixed rate of interest on the capital that would be invested for buying the bond, that would be provided. So that means it's a way of, it's an instrument, it's a financial instrument which is sold to both individuals and institutions, and the individuals and institutions, for them it's an investment where they will make some money. But because they are buying that, they are giving the money now, so the municipality can use the money to execute some projects. So it's a highly liquid, instrument. It can be traded in the stock market. And one example of this is the municipal bonds by Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation for water supply and sewerage program, which was done in 1998. So this was done almost 20 years back. But this is the first example, successful example of a municipal bond which has been floated for developing water supply and sewerage infrastructure in that particular area. Now the problem is, large municipalities which have lot of resources, lot of properties to back up this kind of bonds, for them it's possible, but for small municipalities it's not possible. So Government of India has made this scheme which is known as the Pooled Finance Development Fund scheme, where this facility for creation of this floating of these bonds or for development of projects and all is also made available for the smaller municipalities. So what it says is a group of municipalities are brought together and a fund is created for this particular municipality, and this fund could be utilized for floating, as this fund is the guarantee which is there, using which the municipality, one particular municipality can float some bond, some municipal bond, which they can use for some infrastructure generation. If this pooled fund was not there, then the municipality could not have floated, because it doesn't have the guaranteed, the guarantee at the back which will guarantee that particular municipal bond. So facilitates, so Pooled Finance Development Fund scheme, this facilitates small and medium ULBs to fund infrastructure projects, and the credit enhancement grants are provided to a state pooled finance entity. So that means the some amount of money is given by the state government into this pooled fund, right, which is pooled by maybe 10 to 15 municipalities brought together, and within that the government will provide some money, which is the the common money which could be utilized as the guarantee for all the municipal bonds floated by these individual municipalities. So one example of this is the Tamil Nadu Urban Development Fund. They floated bonds for water and sewerage infrastructure projects, and this was done by pooling 14 municipalities in the year 2003. So another example is the Karnataka Water and Sanitation Pool Fund, which was done in 2005, and this was done to take care of the Greater Bangalore Water Supply Sewerage Project, and the government of Karnataka pulled money into this, and also USAID also pulled money into this particular fund. Now there was guarantee of 50% of the principal amount of market borrowing was provided from USAID. So that means the pooled finance that is made available, that means this excess money that is required as guarantee, that is made available by the government. But similarly, you can see that a agency, a bilateral agency like USAID has also provided that guarantee, right? So they have put money into the fund so that the municipality can generate its own bond. So that is another way of facilitating the finance availability for that particular municipality. So these are the different various ways municipality can generate finance to carry some different forms of infrastructure projects. Now some projects are long term, some projects require a lot of capital, accordingly we will go for some sources. Other projects are short term, it doesn't require that much capital, we will use certain other financial mechanisms for those. Now along with generation of funds, the other major important thing is public-private partnership. That is, ULB can also work with a private sector entity or collaborate with a private sector entity to facilitate service provision and infrastructure development. So in this case, the private entity can invest some amount of money or the entire amount of money. They can manage and operate the infrastructure service for some period of time, and eventually they may return the infrastructure service, or they may keep on managing it, and they can generate the charges from the people to finance it as well. So this PPP efficiency, that means because it's a contract between the private sector and the government sector, so that means if we not define the contracts properly, if the government policies, the regulatory framework, the government subsidies, the finance mechanisms, these are not defined properly, there is a chance that this PPP project will fail, and there is a chance that this private entity will try to take benefit out of it, because private entity is motivated by the profit it makes, right? So it will always try to find the loopholes so that sometimes it can neglect the services that has to be done under this particular contract. So the contracts, the policies, the regulatory framework, this has to be very, very strong to make the PPP model efficient. So the risk there are also problems for the private entity. There are a lot of, because these PPP models are done for this service provision. These are sectors where there is less chance of making profit. There is chance of public protest. There are other problems, right? So that means we have to also facilitate the private entities to a certain extent as well. So for example, the risk of conducting or making this project, that has to be shared between the private and the public entity. Then there has to be some performance linked incentives. That means if the private entity does good work, there has to be some performance linked incentives. That means there has to be some extra money that has to be provided to those particular company. Then service has to be as per the agreed contract and the service level benchmarks. That means there has to be some way to regulate or monitor the service. So there are different varieties of PPP models, and we have discussed this in detail in our utilities lecture, in our utilities NPTEL course. But again, I will repeat that. Like one of these different models are divestures, concessions, lease affirmages, management contracts, mixed ownership companies, build, operate, transfer projects, turnkey projects. So these are different ways the contract could be done between private entities and a government entity, right? So divestiture is where the infrastructure asset from the government is totally sold off to the private investor, and then they can run that particular infrastructure or provide that particular service. Concession is where private operator is responsible for both operation and some amount of investment, right? Lease affirmages is where the private operator operates the publicly owned system. The ownership is public. That means the government owns the system. It collects revenues and shares, and for operation of the system, it will collect the revenue and shares some of this with the public authority. And because the public authority also have to use this money for future investment and all, but the rest is utilized by this company to make both profit as well as to keep that particular service operational. Then there are management contracts, which are publicly owned utilities managed by a private operator, which is straight away. Then there is mixed ownership companies, such as private investor, it becomes the minority share. It operates that particular company or that utility or that infrastructure and shares the financial gains that comes out of it with the government body. And then there are build, operate, transfer projects or turnkey projects, where the entire infrastructure is planned. Maybe planning, the government will also take will also participate, but the entire construction operation is taken care by the municipal with this private entity. And after a certain years of operation, when it has made the profit or it has generated the investment that it has put in, they have recovered that particular amount, then they can also transfer the project back to the government as well. So these are the different ways PPP models can also operate. So this table is from URDPFI guidelines. If you see that this table suggests that for different kinds of projects, what sort of finance mechanisms could be undertaken. For example, if I want to develop low cost housing for poor in the urban area, so it's a real estate project, so we can go for FDI, we can go for municipal bonds, we can go for PPP models, we can go from loans from financial institutions. Similarly, if it is like a city large scale infrastructure project at the state or the district level, then we can look for bilateral and multilateral agencies, because they fund for large scale projects which goes on for 20 years, 15 years and so on. Then foreign direct investment, public-private partnerships could also be there. And for city urban infrastructure, repair, maintenance, some provision, then central grant in aids and schemes, private PPP models, loans, as well as municipal bonds can be also looked into. So we can have a mix of different finance sources which could be undertaken to conduct different kind of social and physical infrastructure in urban areas, or to provide those kind of infrastructure. So in most cases, we see that municipal revenue, mostly the revenue that the money that the municipality make goes for staff salaries, pensions and operational expenses. Thus municipal bodies, because most of the money goes into these recurring expenses, it has not much money to spend for capital expenditure. So the only way to generate money for this is to have, we can make loans, but eventually we have to also, we can take loans or we can get money from other sources, but we have to return the money. That means we have to generate revenue, right? So one way to do that is to improve the collection. That means the user charges and all these things, we have to improve quite a bit. Like for example, water supply or for sanitation, we only may be able to collect from 50% of the urban residents. So we have to improve the collection process. We have to also improve the tariff mechanisms and so on. Similarly, land value is another area, that is how we can monetize the land in the municipality. In many cases, we can give certain permissions, or we can put certain charges, or we can develop certain lands so that we can generate more money out of it. So land value has to be enhanced, and land value capture, or there has to be some way to monetize land in an urban area, because that's the primary resource that the urban area has got. So these are the ways we can improve municipal finances for provision of different services, or for provision or construction of different infrastructure for service provision in municipal areas. So these are some of the references you can look at. So to conclude, ensuring financial and organizational health of an urban local body requires efficient fiscal management and adoption of innovative mechanisms to generate funding for capital-intensive projects. On the other hand, municipalities should gradually improve collection of user charges through innovative public-private partnerships, which are going to be sustainable in the long run. Thank you.